10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Yo, it's Aaron.
And Darryl.
And welcome to episode 24 of Your Brain on
God.
Welcome back, all of you beautiful boggies. Welcome to part 2
back
of our series on self-awareness. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how self-awareness directly impacts our relationship with other people. And as we grow in self-awareness, our relationships grow big, strong, healthy, amazing. It helps us love people better. So we hope that you enjoy this episode. Make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, on Spotify and iTunes especially. We love you guys. Enjoy the episode. Bada bing, bada boom. What's going on? All of our boggies out there, welcome to episode 24 of Your Brain on God. Come on.
Episode 24. Here we go.
Episode 24. You know, 24 was my favorite show growing up.
24.
Kiefer Sutherland.
I forgot about 24.
Jack Bauer, dude. So much went on in 24 hours in that show.
Wasn't it a series? Was 24 hours worth of time?
Yeah, 24 episodes. It was 24 hours of time, and this guy killed probably hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And he solved an entire terrorist attack. It was
24
incredible.
hours.
If you never watched 24, it's amazing.
What's his name?
Jack Bauer.
Jack Bauer.
Dang, I hardly know her. It was incredible. Anyway, welcome back to episode 24. It's going to be a doozy, guys.
Doozy doozer.
I can feel it already. I feel it deep down
in the air.
In the pits.
The armpits.
The pits. I was going to say of my stomach, but in my arm. I think I feel a tingle as well. Yeah. A rustling in the hairs.
Something's about to happen. I feel it in my armpits.
I can feel it in my armpits. That's beautiful. I'm glad we don't experience emotions in our armpits. Well, I guess if we were born experiencing emotions in our armpits, we wouldn't really know the difference. And then maybe if I experience emotions in the rest of my body, then it would be weird to even talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we kind of experience emotions in different parts of our body. Actually, we do.
We do.
You know, different emotions have different kind of visceral experiences usually. Yeah,
I know. You can get anxious. You can feel it in your stomach.
Feel in your stomach.
You get it on your
things in your throat when you're sad.
I feel it right here in my head.
When you're anxious?
When I'm anxious? Yeah, my head goes.
I've heard that the feeling of being nervous and the feeling of being excited is the same in the body.
In the body, like you feel it in the same
bodily
place?
Experience. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
Like your stomach's your stomach dropping or whatever. Does that happen?
Hey, we don't know. Hey, we're just bantering up here.
And when you're on a roller coaster, you get excited and nervous
at the same time.
Excited and nervous, going up
fearful.
and up about doing that drop.
You know what's kind of crazy is that we love fear. You know what I mean?
Like we love the rush.
We love the rush. Like we love certain types of fear. Mm-hmm. If there's one thing that makes me afraid, it's watching those videos of city runners. Have you guys ever seen those? You know what I'm talking about?
Like free runners?
No, just like people running.
Just people running in a
just
city?
Like, yeah, in a city.
No, we don't know. Don't watch this.
No. Like, that's not the thing. Like, free runners.
Free running. Parkour.
City running. Just like, just people running around. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it terrifies me. Big cities just can't do it.
No, yeah, the free running guys, man. Or the guys that they walk on the edges of high rises.
That's sketch.
Even watching the videos, it makes me want to.
It's like planking. You know, in planking, that people start doing planking on really like whenever people just lay down flat on some surface.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember planking. Yeah.
And people started doing it in dangerous spots and actually died, didn't they?
What?
I remember hearing that
planking on the freeway.
People, no.
Check this out.
On the middle of the freeway. Went right on the 101. No, like on really high spots, like edges, cliffs.
And they were dying from planking.
I don't know if they were dying or if it was a person, but I remember hearing a story.
Hey, this might sound insensitive, but if you died from planking...
Oh my gosh, Aaron. Whatever you're about to say, just don't say it.
Just don't say it. I need to have self-awareness. Boom, transition.
Boom! Self-awareness. Be aware of your impact.
Be aware of your impact
on the environment around you.
Yeah, it's the second episode, Darryl. It's the second episode of our self-awareness series. Okay?
Yeah.
Self-awareness. And contrary to popular belief, I have a lot of it. Just so prideful, doesn't even realize it. No. So last week we had a great conversation about self-awareness, about stepping into self-awareness, about the fact that God actually calls us in to self-awareness so that we can know ourselves. And actually, in knowing ourselves, we know more about who God is because he created us in his image. And he wants us to uncover those things in ourselves so that we can grow.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge thing, is that living apart from self-awareness, from being aware of what's actually going on inside you, from emotions to tendencies to certain just modes of being or ways of interacting with the world, it can keep us from actually growing. And we also talked about how it's different than self-consciousness.
Yes, self-consciousness. I think we often are in a mode of judging, kind of. Not necessarily, but when we think of self-consciousness, I think it's usually in a judging kind of way. Like I'm being very self-conscious and judging myself on certain things, being insecure about something or thinking about myself in a certain way and placing some kind of judgment on it as to whether or not I should be feeling this way or should be thinking this thing,
right,
or doing it this way.
Right.
Where self-awareness is more about releasing judgment, having a suspension of judgment and just taking an objective look on what is.
Right.
I am feeling this. I am thinking this. I am doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That is self-awareness,
right,
without the judgment attached to it.
Right.
And we talked about how the judgment often stops us from becoming self-aware because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
The discomfort of discovering ourselves and seeing ourselves as we truly are often stops us from just taking a straight look in the mirror. Right. Right. And just looking to see who we are.
Right. Because it's scary to feel like, we don't like being picked apart by anybody. I don't know who likes being picked apart by anybody, but we do it to ourselves all the time. Which is like, it's like a common phrase to say, like, if you treat somebody else how you treat yourself, like, don't, I would never treat somebody else how I treat myself with being like a critic. Right. And so self-awareness is different than self-consciousness in that, it's free from judgment and it's free from shame, or it's at least willing to move past shame and then even be aware about that shame and then move through it. Right.
Yeah. I'm going to read this definition real quick again. It came from Oxford. Self-awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feeling, motives, and desires. Right. And I think on a very basic level, we can read that and think, okay, well, I know what I'm feeling. I know my character. I know my motive. I know what I want. But going deeper is a deeper level of self-awareness would be knowing why we're feeling that thing. Like not just knowing that I'm angry or knowing that I'm sad, though that is part of self-awareness. But then going even deeper and thinking, well, why am I actually angry? Why am I actually sad? Right. And seeking to understand that within myself. Right.
And I think another definition that we talked about was it's to truly know yourself.
As you really are.
As you really are. Mm-hmm. So most of the time when we're looking at ourselves, we're seeing with kind of, I guess, filters on. We're looking at ourselves, whether positive or negative filters or certain filters that were created through our upbringing, through family, through the environments that we're in. We're often seeing ourselves through filters. And then there's the parts that we see ourselves through filters, and then there's the parts that we don't see at all, our blind spots. Right. And so coming into self-awareness is to ask ourselves, what are our blind spots and what are our filters that we have on ourselves that keep us from seeing ourselves as we truly are, right? Yes. Because people, they often can see more than we can see, even through our own filters or whatever like that, So all that to say, self-awareness is something that God wants us to step into. It allows us to know Him. And it's a difficult journey.
Yeah.
It's a difficult journey. We talked about that as well, how, it's hard to actually step in to realizing that you might have some faults or you might have some areas to work on. And we were just talking about it today. It's hard to listen to somebody call you out because it brings a shame. There's shame. It's almost like, someone seeing you, naked. If you're insecure or you're feeling weird about it, it's like, this is really vulnerable. I'm really out here. And so we fight against that. But it's really in moving into that fight, that journey of self-awareness, that we grow. So it helps us personally, and it helps us grow as an individual, but it also is extremely important. I would say one of the most important things for relationships, both friendships and intimate relationships, as well as our relationship with God too. But it's incredibly important as we step into relationships. It makes relationships so much better when we can step into a sense of self-awareness. On
that note, there's something called the Johari window that I don't think we mentioned last time, but it's a good tool and a reference to think about on the topic of self-awareness. So the Johari window, often also called the self-awareness square, I think that's what I've seen it as, or like self-awareness quadrilateral. It's a quadrilateral, meaning there's 4 squares. But one square, like if you're looking at a window pane or whatever, you have these different squares, these 4 different squares that represent a person. And it's all about the levels of awareness. So the levels of awareness that you have of yourself and the levels of awareness that others have of yourself. And in one square is the open space, the open square. And that's what you are aware of and what other people are aware of. Right. So that is, very, very easily identified. It could be the way that you look, the eye color, your hair color. Those could be things that are very easily in the open space. Your type of personality can be there. If someone's outgoing or not outgoing, or if they're introverted or extroverted. It just depends on the relationships. But the open space, it's the things that you know about you and others know about you. And there's the hidden space or the facade. And that's what you know about you, but others do not. So it's things that we choose to keep hidden or keep secret, or we choose to put some kind of facade on for whatever reason, whether it's because of shame or if we just want to be perceived another way. I guess it probably is connected to shame in one way or another. But for whatever reason, we hide those things, the things that we want, the things that we're really feeling, our desires, our motives. That's our hidden space or facade. And then there is the blind spot, which is what other people are aware of that you are not aware of. So we have the open space. Everybody's aware of those things. The hidden space, you are aware of those things. Others are not. And then there's the blind space, which others are aware of and you are not aware of. Those could be things that, on a very surface level, it's like having food in your teeth when you don't recognize it, having some dirt on your face, you don't see it, other people see it. But it could be behavioral things too, ways that you behave, things that you say. You're not realizing it's having a certain impact, or you're not realizing that it's coming across a certain way. That could be your blind spots, blind spaces. And we talked about blind spots a little bit last time.
One for me would be the fact that every time I preach, apparently, when I try and say literally, I say littly. And that's something that you weren't aware of until like last year. I wasn't aware of it at all. And then everyone was like, hey, literally? And I was like, what are you talking about? Because every time I said literally in a sermon, people were like, hey, you say literally when you say literally. Anyway.
But now that's from the blind space into the open space.
It's in the open space now. Come on.
The last space is the unknown. So that's about what things you're not aware of yourself and others aren't aware of yourself. And that could be all kinds of things.
So I guess the idea would be to uncover more of the unknown as well, right? Because you're constantly discovering more stuff about yourself, or people are.
Right. And the journey of self-awareness is to increase that open space.
Right.
Because when we're living in, you might say, well, what about if I'm aware of myself and I choose not to show it, so my facade or hidden space, that's self-awareness. That is a level of self-awareness, and it is self-awareness, but it's not authentic if you're hiding who you actually are. So if we want to talk about living authentically in self-awareness, we need to learn to grow the open space.
Right.
Learn what it looks like to be and to live in the open, authentic space. And that requires self-awareness to uncover the unknown things about what we're feeling, what we're thinking, why we're thinking it, why we're feeling it, and also discovering those blind spaces, right? So the things that sometimes we don't recognize them unless somebody else points it out to us, like
Right.
if we have something in our teeth, or if we say literally when we're trying to say it literally.
Yeah.
And that is a little frame of reference. So we have the open space, we have the hidden or the facade, we have the blind space, which is our blind spots, and the unknown. But we want to increase that open space. And that's
Right.
at least that's what I want to do.
Right. Yeah.
I want to try to figure out how to do that well.
Yeah, 'cause,
I want to live authentically. And
Exactly. Yeah, that open space is where freedom lies, I think. You know what I mean? When you're actually accepting where you're actually at, and you're allowing other people into that journey as well. I think the thing with the Johari, right?
Yeah.
That's how you say it. Johari window is that it is all in. There's two sets of people knowing those things. There's you knowing and people, which I think is crucial in what we're going to be talking about today. Is self-awareness is always, you know what I mean, you're uncovering yourself, and in you uncovering yourself, that has to do with other people as well.
Yeah, right.
What other people are seeing, what other people aren't seeing, you know, it's always in relation to people. And that's, you know, kind of what we talked about in the last episode was a baby kind of realizing that they're an actual person. But
Right.
when you're growing, when your brain is developing, what happens in young babies is they not only realize that they're, you know, just that they're a person, but they realize that they are a person separate to other people. They realize that they're actually distinct from others, right?
Yeah.
And so naturally, our ability to be self-aware is in relationship to other people, because when we recognize who we are, when we start to uncover kind of us being distinct from other people, we start to see other people as well, and that changes the way we interact with our world, changes the way that we interact with relationships in our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That I was listening to a podcast a while ago on on narcissism, because I heard some people talking about it. I was like, what actually is narcissism? But they talked about grandiose narcissism, which is what people typically think of when people are just thinking about themselves. They don't really have the ability to think about and consider someone else. And this teacher, and he was a professor, he was relating it to childhood development. A baby, they start becoming aware of their own needs, and they at one point separate themselves from the environment. They recognize that they have an impact on the environment around them. They can move things, they can do something, and something happens. They can cry and they get a response, right? And at that space where they are aware of themselves, they're not yet aware of other people as selves or as others who have their own needs, their own perspective, their own experience of life. And so when a baby's crying, it doesn't care who it wakes up in the middle of the night.
Right.
It's not considering the other person.
Right.
And that what happens, or what might be the reason people have that kind of narcissism, the grandiose narcissism, is they kind of don't develop that social awareness, which is that next step in that self-awareness, recognizing I have an impact on other people who also have an experience like I have experiences. And if there's probably not many people who are living in that space, but if we were to think, well, that's the kind of the progression of how this development happens, right? We become aware of ourselves first, and then we start becoming aware of our impact on other people.
Right.
And even if we're not a grandiose narcissist, we can still lack self-awareness and lack our understanding of how we are impacting other people.
Right. And we talked about it, about like the hand, and we had it was kind of like a mystical moment together, a little boggy mystical moment. But just to realize, to look at your hand and to realize, oh my gosh, there's a me behind my hand. You know what I mean? You're becoming aware that it's like, whoa, this is me, and recognizing me, like a baby would look in the mirror and be like, whoa. Okay, maybe not. They wouldn't say "whoa" in their minds, right?
Look at all these fingers. Look how many phalanges I have.
Wait a second. Yeah, I wish that was what was going on in babies' minds. But so they're not saying "whoa," but they're recognizing themselves as an individual in the mirror, and that's a part of self-awareness. But a huge part of self-awareness is not only realizing, "Hey, I have a hand, and there's a me behind the hand," but with this hand, I can actually move things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually an agent of causation. I'm actually somebody who can actually can actually change things or alter things in the world, in relationships, right? And that I actually have an impact on the things that I come into contact with in the world, right? And so this is what kids start to learn as they grow up, that their actions actually affect their siblings, their parents, that they actually get consequences for their actions. They start to realize, oh, it's not just a me show. It's not just becoming aware about me. It's actually what I do affects other people and affects other things, right? Yeah. And if it stops maybe with the grandiose narcissist just knowing, oh, it's all about me, you know what I mean? Right. But they're not realizing that their actions are actually affecting other people, then they'll do whatever they want and they won't see the damage or the harm that they're causing to other people because of their selfishness or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But a necessary step of true self-awareness is stepping into a place when you realize what I actually do changes things. Mm-hmm. And has consequences, whether good or bad, and that significantly affects the way that we operate in relationships. Hopefully not in a fearful way where now it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything because anything I can do actually affects people and it's a butterfly effect and I could ruin everything, right? That's not the idea here at all, right? It's to know that I can actually bring about change in the relationships that I have, and as I become more and more self-aware, knowledgeable about what's going on inside of me, like we said last time, knowing us allows us to know God more. Knowing us also allows us to know people more. Mm-hmm. It allows us to see the emotions of people more. It allows us to see the experience of people more. It now allows us to be aware of the little hints, the what is it called? The physical language. What am I saying?
What? Body language,
physical language.
You know, that physical language thing that we do.
Like body language, to pick up on things through the experiences and the awareness that we have. Awareness of self. It allows us to see and become aware of other people as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge in relationships, because if I can't recognize anger in myself, it might be hard for me to recognize when someone else is angry or why someone else is angry. Or if I can't recognize the sadness that I feel and kind of sit and reflect on me being sad, like, wow, I'm feeling some pain. Where's this coming from? It can be hard for me to do that for someone else, to recognize that someone else is in pain, to recognize that somebody else is needing something, you know? And the more that we can do that journey within ourselves and grow in that awareness, that starts, it enables us to have better relationships. Because now it's not just I'm looking at somebody and they're feeling something, but I don't really know how to relate to what they're feeling, but I can identify that in myself.
Right.
Even if I don't know exactly what's happening. I think, was it Brene Brown that said it's the first step to empathy? Yeah. Self-awareness is the first step to empathy. And it's like when I can recognize that I'm feeling this, that I feel this way.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if she specifically said that.
Okay.
But I read that today.
Oh, he read that. Somebody said that somewhere or wrote it on the internet.
But she does talk about how we don't have to identify with a specific thing that someone's going through, but we can identify with the feelings because we've experienced those feelings before.
Right. Yes.
But we have to be self-aware in order to understand our own feelings, so that in empathy we can understand, oh, I haven't been through what you're going through. I haven't been through a divorce, but I understand the feeling of heartbreak or loss or whatever.
Yeah. In that, as we grow in self-awareness and start to put some language to some things that we feel in ourselves, we are better able to understand the people around us.
Right.
Which can strengthen relationships. It can help identify the actual cause of tension in relationships.
Right.
Because if I'm not aware of what I'm doing and how that's affecting someone else, I'm probably going to keep on doing that thing.
Right.
And I don't know it, but this relationship or these relationships are damaged, they're hurting. I could be blaming other people, thinking that it's something else. But if I take a moment to think, well, do I have a place in this?
Right.
What am I doing that's causing this? Am I doing anything that's causing it? And it's important to be able to take a moment to ask that question, have a healthy level of self-awareness. And, I think in another episode, we talked about responsibility and agency, but recognizing, what am I responsible for? What have I actually done? What am I doing that's causing this impact?
Right.
And when we don't practice self-awareness, we won't come to that place.
Right. Because you're naturally, I mean, I use this language a lot of like mirrors, like you're going to mirror what you experience in life, or you're going to project what you experience in life. And so what self-awareness allows us to do is it allows us to choose what we're mirroring and what we're projecting. Because a lot of the times when we're not aware of what actually has affected us in life, or we're not aware of our emotions, or we're not aware of where we're actually at, we will unknowingly project our situation, our circumstance, our brokenness, our family struggles, you name it. We'll unknowingly mirror that or project that onto other people, onto our world, and then almost create even a reality in our lives that is based in maybe things that aren't healthy. And maybe a classic example of this is a father who, maybe say he won, played college ball, and he always wanted to go to the majors, but he got hurt, and so he didn't get to go to the majors or something like that, and he was moving up in college ball, and so it was kind of like a dream that was kind of crushed for him, right? So then that father has a son, raises him up having baseball, and playing baseball, and he's super controlling over the son playing baseball. So like super passionate. The kid loves it at first, but his dad's super adamant, get out and practice. Hey, we're going this, like just super crazy about his son getting out and going to play the game. Right. And eventually the son starts to resent his father, starts to get angry and bitter. Maybe in his high school years, I don't really want to play this. Have I ever wanted to play this? Maybe I've just been following it because my dad wanted to follow it, whatever. It can break apart relationships, all starting because maybe the father was trying to fulfill his own dream through his son.
And he didn't know that.
Right. And I've seen this happen in families, and I've see a lot of my students who are doing sports and who are pushed into different sports because everyone in their family played sports, because maybe they played in college or whatever, and they're pushing their kids to do it, and they're way, way, way too hard on to the point where they just want to give up entirely, right? And like they actually have a broken relationship with their dad or with their mom because of this thing, all because of a lack of self-awareness of saying, hey, maybe I'm not pushing, my kid to follow their dreams. I'm actually pushing my dream onto my kid, right? And I still have some brokenness that I haven't dealt with, and now I'm projecting that brokenness in a form of control onto my kid, and now making them live in that way, right? And I've seen this happen, and it can get really damaging in families, in friendships, and in intimate relationships if we don't actually take a minute to become aware, like of, say, this father instance, like to ask ourselves the questions like, why am I being so hard on my boy? Or even being aware to say, am I being hard on my boy? You know what I mean? And then to know where that stuff actually comes from. I love what you said. It's not just being aware that you're angry or that you're controlling, but where is this actually coming from? Right? Because once we recognize the source of some of the ways that we're acting, or some of the things that we're projecting, once we realize the source, we actually we can actually make a decision about it.
Yeah, we have a chance to choose.
Right.
If we're going to continue in the way or change.
Right. And seldom, I never use that word. Wow.
Seldomly use that word.
I seldomly use that word. And seldom does a person, I really like that word. All right. Does a person recognize actually the effect of what they're doing and realize that it's causing somebody harm, and then not at least want to change that about themselves. Right? Unless you are a grandiose narcissist, you know what I mean? Or, you're kind of a sociopath, you know what I mean? You don't experience emotions or know how, see the pain in other people. Once you recognize that you're causing someone pain, most people are not going to continue that. They might still struggle to actually get out of that habit, and they might continue to fail, and it might still cause brokenness in the relationship, but that doesn't mean that they want to live that way. Right?
Because then there could be an intentional effort to change.
Yeah.
Right. To do it differently. I think about my growing up and my tendency to avoid conflict. Like that's my default has always been avoid conflict. And growing up,
and that's why I want to fight him.
That's why Aaron's always trying to fight me.
I'm like, don't you avoid, Darryl. I'm trying to help you grow, man.
But I had to recognize at one point that the conflict I was trying to avoid was always because of something that happened in my past. That my experience of conflict growing up was never healthy. It was always broken. It resulted in brokenness. Never saw reconciliation. I never saw how to engage in conflict in a healthy way. And conflict always brought destruction, right? And that was my experience of conflict. And so I avoided conflict. I was very, very conflict avoidant. And I didn't know it was because of those things.
Right.
I didn't know I was avoiding it because I was afraid of the damage that I saw happen in the past happening again. I just thought, I'm just going to try to bring peace, try to keep peace everywhere, every way that I can, not cause any disruptions because, I want people to feel good about themselves or whatever. And really a lot of my conflict avoidance came from my experiences as a child. And the brokenness that I saw come, the times when I saw my dad leaving the house because he was so angry, or my siblings or my parents yelling at each other and slamming doors. I never saw the good that came from conflict.
Right.
And it wasn't until I recognized why I was avoiding conflict that I could then choose to do it differently.
You can make a decision.
Yeah, I had to recognize that I was avoiding conflict because of my experience in the past.
Right.
And my conflict avoidance wasn't something that was an innately good thing that I was trying to do. It was something that was broken within me.
Right.
And it stayed that way until I recognized that it was that way. Right? I didn't change. I didn't make any effort to change until I realized I was doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
Right. And then I was able to look at conflict differently. Then I could, once I noticed what was happening inside of me, I had the chance to take a different perspective and to change my approach to conflict.
Right.
So I'm a lot more comfortable with conflict now because I can see conflict through a different lens. I'm not stuck with the lens that I was handed growing up.
Totally.
It's not the lens that I put on as a kid. Once I realized I had been wearing this lens of conflict, I had the choice to take it off and to put on a new lens.
Right.
But if I hadn't done any self-awareness, it wouldn't have gone to that point.
Right. Or taken the time to realize that.
Yeah. I wouldn't have taken the time to realize that. I wouldn't have even recognized it in my own life. Even if somebody told me that was why, if I didn't take the time to actually stop and reflect, I wouldn't have noticed that. Somebody can tell me that I have something on my face, and I could think, no, I don't have anything on my face. I could just choose to ignore it. Right. And even if it's on, like, I don't feel it on my face, so I don't have anything on my face. Like, you're just saying something, Right. But I have to choose to look in the mirror.
On your face, Darryl.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When someone tells me that, then I'm like, okay, well, I need to look in the mirror to see if that's true.
Right.
Right. Not just think, no, I don't have that on my face. Right. Well, I'm at least going to look in the mirror to see if that's true. And if it's not on my face, then great. It's not on my face. I don't need to worry about it. Right. But if it is on my face, I want to wipe it off. I want to get clean.
So, okay, I hope not to go on a huge tangent because I have something to respond to that. But I have two things to respond to that. Okay. What is the mirror? Because okay, so how do you know? Because in relationship, we talked about this. There's things that people know. There's blind spots, right? And people are going to call out some stuff in you. And what is the mirror that you use to know if what they're saying is their own projection or it's actually true, legitimate?
I think that it is, there is the blind spots. Blind spots we don't really recognize unless somebody else points it out to us, typically. So we can ask for feedback. Right. If somebody says something to me, I don't know if it's true about me, then I can ask someone that I feel safe with. Right.
So a comfortability in a person, like a person that you trust, can be like almost like choosing someone to be a mirror for you.
Yeah. Having people who can be mirrors, and also taking the time to do self-reflection. Right.
Like I asked you to tell me today if there was something wrong with me, and you said, "Well, you used to always say literally." You brought that up today, but I don't know if
an example.
If there's something worse that do you want to tell me live?
I'll tell you right now.
Yes,
Aaron, you're always trying to fight me, and I hate it.
No, but moving on. I know what your experience is. I had the same one. Growing up for me, silence always meant that there was distance in the relationship. Like whenever there was silence in the car, it usually meant that there was something going on between my parents. And so I think it's affected a lot for me. You know what I mean? That I kind of have to I have to slow down and work because I'm very loud, obviously, and I like to talk a lot. But I think sometimes it's because I'm trying to fill space so that there's not silence. You know what I mean? Or like distance to the relationship, or even like in a relationship, it's been cool to grow with Abby, and then even to be comfortable when we're just chilling out, like being silent. You know, we had a date a while ago, and we went out on the pier. I think it was at Oceanside, and we were just looking out, or I don't remember what beach, Ocean Beach, I think. And we were just looking out, and then we didn't even realize it, but for like 5 minutes, we were just silent next to each other, looking at the thing, you know what I mean? Which is a totally different experience for me. Right. But I had to recognize that silence doesn't always mean disconnection. And that, in fact, sometimes it means connection. Right.
Yeah.
But I always see, even in my preaching, like you can notice I talk very, very quickly in my preaching. I don't allow for any dead space at all, because silence is almost like uncomfortable for me. You know what I mean? Like that there could be a disconnect in the relationship, or if people aren't responding, like they're not actually getting it. Like there's a lot that silence actually means to me because of at least one of the reasons of growing up in silence meaning disconnection, or there's not vibrancy, right? And so I would use words to fill all of that space, all of the silent space, so that I can know, right? And so I actually just thought about that yesterday, you know? But so you can always grow in self-awareness, because that literally was a thought I had yesterday. I was like, I wonder why I fill so much space and talk so quick when I'm preaching.
Yeah. Self-awareness is a journey. It's not a destination. Yeah. It's not somewhere we arrive.
Right. But it's important to know that, because then I wouldn't be comfortable with silence in my relationships. And actually I would push to always be talking, which might be more unhealthy than actually having a time of silence with somebody.
Yeah.
You know? You have to realize those things to have that healthiness in a relationship, or at least to have that aspect in a relationship. And the more you become aware with it's kind of like a prism, you know what I mean? The more light can shine in different areas and reflect in different ways, so that it's a full relationship with other people. Right. And the more you become aware of, the more you deal with, the more you step into, the more vibrant actually the relationship can be in its fullness, rather than seeing things one way because you came from a certain stream, I guess.
Right. Yep. In that growing in self-awareness allows us to engage with people differently. Right. Right. So now I don't hide behind trying to, be a peacekeeper. Now I'm okay with engaging in conflict with somebody else for the sake of a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I like it. I start fights daily.
All the time trying to fight me. And it impacts my relationships, because I've recognized I'm avoiding conflict for the wrong reason.
Right.
Sometimes conflict is good, and it's needed to work through things to come to a place of peace. And if I wouldn't do that, my relationships would suffer. Right. And so and the same thing with you with your silent moments of silence. Sometimes silence is good to have in a relationship. Right. And if there's always a need to try to fill the space, then it might not leave the space that could be required for something, for processing, or for whatever that might be.
For health.
For health. And that level of awareness that we have of ourselves starts to impact our relationships with other people. Right. And that's the thing that we have to be so aware of, is like our effect on someone else. Right. And it's not something that we do easily all the time, because sometimes it's hard to know what childhood woundings we've experienced that are causing us to be a certain way. That takes some time and reflection, and self-awareness. And even when we are, have a level of self-awareness, it doesn't mean we're always constantly going to be aware of ourselves. Right. I was just talking with Brittany about this last night, and she was
his wife.
My wife,
for any
Brittany.
of you newbies.
My wife, Brittany. Yeah.
If you started on episode 24, Brittany's his wife.
So she and I were talking about how our awareness of the things we're feeling from one source, or one category, or area of life, the things that we're experiencing from that area of life can be affecting our area of life in another space. Like if I have some issues at work or stress at work, and I come home and I'm stressed because of what work is happening, I can get triggered by something she does that's very minimal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I don't have
happens all the time.
Right. Yeah.
In relationships.
In relationships.
In marriages, yeah.
It happens all the time. And if I don't have the awareness of I'm stressed because of work, then I can't separate my stress from work from my stress with my wife.
Right.
And the stress at work is now going to be targeted at my wife.
Ooh.
Because I'm just feeling it, you know?
Right.
But when I can become aware of that, I can think, okay, I can let things go, or I can even communicate that to her saying,
Right.
sorry, I have this stuff on my mind. I have this experience. Like it was stressful, or there's this problem, or, you know, I've been thinking through these things, and I can at least communicate that to her. And then she has a level of understanding me as well.
Right.
And when we have that level of self-awareness, that can help bring so much health with our friendships, with our relationships with our significant others, and with ourselves and with God. And with something we are talking about today earlier was the experiences that we have. We can take those experiences and label God with them, because our dad was distant. Now we think God's distant.
Right.
Because this is something that typically happens in life. Like people from different parts of the world, their relationship with their father is often how they see God.
Right.
That's often the framework because God is an authority figure in our mind.
Right.
You know, he's the one that's above. We refer to Father God. You know, in Christianity, it's our Father, our Heavenly
Right.
Father. And if we can't recognize the experience that we had with our dad, then we're probably going to be labeling God with those same things, right? Controlling, or minimizing, too busy, always shaming or saying, I told you so, rather than the Heavenly Father that Jesus talked about.
Right.
But if we don't take that moment to recognize what has been my experience with my dad,
Right.
and how is that affecting my experience with God?
Right.
We do that same thing with other people, with leaders in our lives. I had this experience with this leader, and now every leader, for some reason, is always doing the same thing.
Is that, yeah.
You know, it's like,
And
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, conversations with people. I had a leader who was this way, but every leader is that way, because now I'm looking for it in every leader.
Right. Yeah.
And if I don't recognize where it came from, I can't change that.
Right. Yeah, you know, like that, like law of attraction or whatever. I'm not really into the law of attraction, because for me it's like pretty like new age stuff, whatever. But it does have merit in the fact of we create the realities that we've experienced, you know. And basically, like what Darryl's saying is, if we're not self-aware enough to know that we're bringing our past brokenness into our next journey, you know, so say a leader hurts you in a church or at work or whatever, or a boyfriend, you know, hurts you, takes advantage of you, girlfriend, whatever it is, and then you take that into the next relationship, the next work relationship, the next church job, whatever, and then you will start to project that onto other people, and you will look for the same evidence because you're afraid of that maybe happening again or something like that. And so you're looking for that evidence, and so you're creating a reality that might not even be there. So self-awareness allows you to kind of cut into a reality or a story that you may be creating that's not even true.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, like you said, that allows you as well to cut into what's actually going on in an argument with my wife, or stress at home, because that's like how the classic arguments happen, where you're not even arguing about what first caused the argument. You know,
right.
It's like now you did this and now you did this. And the reason that people argue about stuff that's not the point is they're not being self-aware enough to realize, hey, I'm just actually really exhausted right now and I took it out on you. Or I'm actually very stressed from work right now and I just projected it onto you. Or I've been feeling insecure because this guy at work just took my role and I was supposed to take that role, or they cut my pay, or whatever it is. And then I came home and I didn't have a way to take that out. And so I took that on you. I'm sorry. Self-awareness allows us to look deeply into ourselves and then see, oh man, I'm stressed going in home. I'm going to take a minute outside real quick, breathe, and not project onto my wife the stress of work. Right?
Yeah.
Or I was really insecure about what happened here today and I felt like I wasn't a good leader. I'm not going to take that out on my kids and try and control them right now. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Get some self-awareness. And what does that do? It creates healthy relationships.
Right.
Because when self-awareness makes other people that you're in relationship to feel safe.
Yeah.
You know, when you practice self-awareness, the people around you will practice self-awareness, and they'll realize stuff about themselves that they didn't know, and it will open them up to become better people and to become fully themselves, become more self-aware as you become fully self-aware.
Yeah.
You know, I was just watching last night with AJ, our roommate, for those of you who are joining on episode 24.
Aaron's roommate.
Oh, my roommate. His old roommate. He's still your roommate in spirit. Anyway, we were watching an old Jim Carrey stand-up comedy routine, and it was like from the 90s or something like that. And he was just talking about like the weird desires that we have. And if we followed like all the weird desires, like someone coming up right in front of you, and then he's like, you ever been in a conversation, you're like, I could punch them right in the face right now. And they wouldn't even expect it. And he's like, can you imagine if we followed those things? Or like, he's like in traffic or whatever. You ever had that desire where you're just like, you immediately like rear off to the side or whatever. And you ever had that desire? Is it just me? Darryl, why are you looking at me like that?
Like the random urge to do something.
That's to crazy. Like crash into the back of a car.
Yeah, like, I wonder what that would be like. Somebody was actually talking about, I think this was maybe I don't know if you would be okay with me naming you, so I won't name you. I was talking to somebody recently, and they said that they often think about that, like, what would it be like to just slam into that pole? I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm just curious, like, what is that experience like?
Oh my gosh. But that's like, what it did in the actual set is it made people feel like it was like a laughter spot, because it made people feel like, dude, I get some of those weird desires sometimes, like those weird, right? But it's like, it took like a reflection of like, isn't that a weird thing that I think that sometimes, right? And then in becoming aware that you think that, you share that to somebody else, it makes another person go, hey, I think that sometimes too. Connection and safety is created.
Yeah.
Now that's a funny example of it, right? But if I'm able in a relationship, you know, with my girlfriend to recognize fault in a certain situation and say, hey, I think that was on me. I was really stressed out. I took that out on you. I apologize for that. That's not okay. That creates a safety for her, even in her mind, to say, I think sometimes I do that too. And then the next time it happens, maybe it's her and she came home from work stressed and she took it out on me, right? And it's like, hey, baby, I'm so sorry I took that on, right? And then now we have this mutual trust and safety together because of self-awareness.
Yes.
Right? And then bringing someone else into your self-awareness, it just helps out so much.
Yeah. And when we are not self-aware, when we have an experience where we're stressed, we take it out on somebody, and we don't recognize that's what we're doing, then the other person will not feel safe, because they'll think, I didn't even do anything, and they just freaked out on me. They just flipped, went crazy.
Right.
And I didn't do that. They were blaming it on me. I don't even know what I did. And that can cause damage in that relationship.
Right.
With the way that the other person feels about themselves and about the way that the other person views you. Because then now I'm like irrational, or I'm just not self-aware. I don't know the effect that I'm having on the person around me and the person in front of me. Now it's not safe.
Right.
The lack of self-awareness creates the opposite. It's not just like a neutral experience that happens. You know, if self-awareness and sharing self-awareness allows someone else to feel safe,
right,
the opposite happens whenever we don't have self-awareness, right? I don't think there's a neutral experience that happens. It's not like it doesn't affect the relationship. Lacking self-awareness is going to have an impact on the relationship.
Right.
Right? It's not, if you have self-awareness, it's going to be better. And if you don't have self-awareness, it's just going to be a neutral kind of experience.
Right.
It's going to have a negative impact.
Right.
And whenever we continue in that pathway, it speeds up that process of it happening again and again and again.
Right.
Until we can recognize, this is what I'm doing. This is the impact that I'm having.
Right.
And this is why it's happening.
Right. And I think that comes, it's really important then to recognize what's really going on as well. Because I think that's why I asked earlier, what is actually the mirror, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because we can come up with reasons for things that actually aren't self-aware and actually incorrect views of why we're feeling a certain way. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which can also be a problem, right? Where you become almost like you become self-aware, but you're actually like wrong about why you do something.
Right. You're
Does that make
attributing it
sense?
to something else.
Right.
You're not actually aware. You're still not aware of what's happening.
No. You're still not aware. And so we can kind of come to these places where we think that we know why we do certain things, but then it's still like, no, I think that's a deeper issue. I think that's over here. I don't think it's because, your mom did this, I think it's because, you feel this insecurity in this way because, that kind of stuff, so I think that's also important in stepping into self-awareness is also like an open hand of continually learning who you are.
Yeah.
Like not just pinning yourself to something and then basing your actions so that you can change it based on like one thing that happens. It's like, this happened to me when I was younger, so this is why I act this way.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of imprisons you more than frees you, I would say.
Right, because it can become a crutch or something that you just blame rather than taking responsibility to do something about it.
You use self-awareness to actually pigeonhole you, which isn't self-awareness at all. You know what I mean? You use self-awareness to actually create a pathway for you. Mm-hmm. Rather than allow you to change.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I think that
it's like the Enneagram or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think we'll talk about the reflection. What is reflection? What is the mirror that's available? What mirrors are available to us?
In the next
I think we'll
episode,
talk about that more in the next episode. But it's key to be able to identify those things and to see it accurately. And maybe we can never really truly see ourselves as we really are. Mm-hmm. But we want to get as close as we can.
Yeah.
Like I don't, this wasn't what Paul was talking about when he wrote this, but when he said like, now we see in a mirror dimly,
right.
But then we will see ourselves as I don't remember what he says, but we'll see as it actually is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes
we will know fully as we actually know, as we are fully known.
As we are fully known. We will know fully as we are fully known. And we don't fully know ourselves, and we can't. I think I mentioned this before. John Maxwell says that he said that the greatest fool is the one who thinks they truly see themselves. Mm-hmm. Because we probably will never be at that point where we can actually see ourselves as we really are. Just because of how, like that Johari window, the blind spots, the facade, the hidden area, the unknown space. Mm. There's so much to uncover, and it takes a lot of time and effort and work to start discovering those things and to bringing things into that open area, to engage fully and authentically with who we actually are, and be open to feedback, to hear other people's, like what they see in us that we don't see in ourselves. Yeah, but it takes time, and it's always going to be it's a journey that we're always on. Yeah. Right. It's a journey that we're always on. If we're aware of, one time I could be aware that stress at work is affecting my relationship at home, and then another time I could not be aware that that's what's happening. Yeah. It's not like just because I know that it's possible means I'm always aware when it's happening. Right. That's not how it works. It's an active engagement. It takes intentional, active engagement.
And I think it's a noble journey to make any headway on at all. To step in, because you're becoming self-aware for yourself, which we talked about in the first episode, but you're becoming self-aware for others as well. And I think that is, that's kind of like the Christian motive right there. It's like put others above yourself, So even stepping into self-awareness, you're not just stepping into self-awareness just because it makes you better. You're stepping into self-awareness for the sake of others, so that you can love others better, so you can be in healthier relationships, so that you can have joy around others, so that you can comfort others, so that you can have empathy for others, so that you can see others, support others, comfort. I already said comfort, right? All of those things, when we become self-aware, we're taking a road towards others, and I think as well, that's what Jesus would have us do, right? Is to kind of put ourselves down and put others before ourselves, and so Jesus says, love others as yourself, so you can know others as you know yourself, you can support others as you support yourself. So going on the journey of being self-aware allows you to be aware of other people, which helps you love them better. Yeah. And I think that's a huge goal for me. That's a huge, I guess, an inspiration point. To become more and more self-aware is that everyone gets the fruit of me being more self-aware. My girlfriend gets the fruit of me knowing when she's hurting. Because I've been there before, or I know the impact of my words, and so I realize, hey, that kind of sent something wrong into her, and now I can actually make a choice to fix it or to own up to something, or I can feel that our relationship is off because I'm actually aware of any tension between us or anything that might cause us distance, and so I can make a decision to close that distance and to have a conversation that closes that distance, because I'm not just like, hey, it's all about me, whatever, you're in my world, you're in it's my world, you're just living in it, it's like it's actually I'm aware and I care for people, and so I want to be more aware so that I can love better. Yeah, that's good. To love better. Know ourselves better, and we can love better. Know yourself, love other people. Bada bing, bada boom, 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 shake Maria boo.
Just speaking tongues?
Yeah, I think so. I just spoke in a different language. Sorry about that. You guys are special. You guys really are. Thanks for joining us on episode 24 of Your Brain On. God. We got another episode coming for our self-awareness series. Next week, we'll be talking about tools, and we're going to be giving you guys some of those mirrors that you can actually look into to become more self-aware for your own growth and for the growth and health of your guys' relationships. So it's going to be real awesome. Stay tuned for next week. But in the meantime, make sure that you subscribe to us on Spotify podcasts, iTunes podcasts, YouTube. I promise we're going to get those videos up on YouTube, the last two, and TikTok and Instagram, Your Brain On God, on all of the platforms. Yeah. We love you guys so much. Have the best week ever.
Best week ever
of your life.
Let's go.
Woo. See you guys.